I guess that's going to go to,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I have to do something else. I clicked on that. Oh, stop. Yeah, I think it's recording. It doesn't, I don't see this record.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the first 8 questions were the questions that I had emailed you already. I just went in and added a couple more because like
Oh,
I need just yeah, I was trying to get a little bit more like into depth about the recital hall specifically. So
okay. And let me
yeah.
just say that I didn't see that email. So
Oh,
I'm
really?
continuing the questions, but that's okay. Let's just go for it.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the first question is, what is your name?
Karlton Hester. I'm professor of music and director of digital art and new media.
Hmm? Okay, what do you do? So like what do you play? Are you a DJ? Are you a writer, etc.?
Well, for the festival, I'm the director. And
Hmm.
I put the festival together. What I do in life, I'm a composer performer. I started off on keyboard, so I still play synthesizers, but mostly play flutes and saxophones,
Ooh.
and compose. Um, I compose everything that I do is original, and has been for the last 50 years or more.
Wow. That
So
sounds fun though.
yeah, so I stay busy.
Mm, okay. What was like the switch like going from playing an instrument and then going into composing like your own music?
It was all the same. I started hearing composition like when I was a baby.
Oh, wow.
So I started on piano because I was trying to play the things I heard in my head.
Hmm.
So the composing and the two approaches to composing, which involves improvising, and I call spontaneous composition, and premeditated composition, where you sit down and write it out, are
Hmm.
all the same to me. It's all a part of the same process. And throughout my career, it's been that way. When I went to school, they only had Western European music, but I always had started from the time I was 2 years old listening to African American music, and eventually got in contact with some of my mentors were African American, very prominent people, and so it was always balanced, you know,
Mm.
you know. So there's no difference between my playing and my composing, I guess is
Mm.
the short answer.
That's really cool because me personally, because like I can sing and I also play the piano, and I was always thinking like, what would it be like to actually sit and like compose your own music, you know? So it's nice to be able to talk to somebody who's actually a composer, you know, so I can get like a little background on that, just in case I decide to, start composing music myself.
Well, my only advice would be don't wait too long. If you're
Mm,
singing, playing piano, just start making your own music.
yeah, that's what my parents say all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. When was your last performance?
My last performance was for April in Santa Cruz on
Mm.
the 27th.
Oh,
I did two performances, one on the 26th where I played tenor sax and
mm,
did two of my compositions that they weren't by, but they were written for two of my mentors, one for
mm,
Joe Henderson and one for Donald Byrd. And so that was the last piece on that April 26th concert. And then
mm.
on the 27th, I had written a composition for Karen Yamashita's operetta. And so we did that as a stage reading.
Yeah, the last song that you guys played was really nice. I was like, because like as I was listening, I would like tune into the saxophone, then I tune into another instrument, then I tune into another instrument, and then I go back and I'd listen to all at the same time. And it was really cool.
Well, that's good that you listen that way. Listen to the whole
Yeah.
thing. A lot of
Yeah.
people just listen to the top.
Yeah, no, I try to like listen to each component and then see like how that is like contributing to the thing as a whole. And then I go in and add in everything and be like, oh, okay, this is what's supposed to sound like all together.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Hmm. Um, okay, so how did you get into this activity? So, how did you become a composer and whatnot?
Uh, I just always was. Like my parents said that when I was a baby, I was banging on pots and pans, and that's why they got me on the piano because
Mm,
my elder sister was taking piano lessons, and I just followed in her footsteps. And then eventually her piano teacher heard me banging on the piano and said, "Oh, you should take lessons," and I did. So that's kind of the way I got into it.
Yeah, I understand that. That's kind of how it was with me. My parents was like, "Oh, you want to sing? You want to do that? Here, play the piano." I was like,
Oh,
"Okay, okay. Let me get into it then."
oh.
Okay. How would you describe the sound of your music?
Well, what I tell my student composers is that my only model is the omniverse. So I take all of my compositional organization and principles from nature. And so when it comes to balance and tension and release and the different kinds of timbres and the concept of freedom and the concept of collaborating, all of those things I take from just looking around the omniverse and seeing how things operate, birth both under the microscope and telescope, around you in the garden, everywhere.
Mhm.
And so my music kind of is always different. I've written probably now close to 300 compositions, and
Wow.
everyone's different because
Mm,
it's about a different thing.
mm,
It's not like it's not a formula of any sort. It's
mm.
just inspiration.
Yeah, I like that because because like I always thought like there's like a set way to like, not necessarily compose, but just a set way to do all things, because you want to be professional, you want to do it right, but to like have your own freedom to just like you said, just look around and see what's going on and then build off of that and take that as inspiration. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, well, when I first started out, I moved to Southern California
Mm,
and I was teaching at a high school as soon as, like a week after I graduated from undergrad. And
mhm,
I had a lot of opportunities. It was a really good high school, and I had a lot of opportunities to collaborate with people. And so we
mhm,
brought in guest artists. And one of the ones I brought in was Buddy Collette. And he worked from way back in the day in the studios, in the television studios and movie studios. And so he got me in because I had invited him. And so I started doing that. And for that, there were formulas, you know,
mhm,
because you have to do things overnight. And so everybody used these different methods, like the Schillinger method and things like that, where they taught you how to compose really fast so you could go overnight
mm,
and it sound good because
mm.
music is mathematical, so and there's certain things that we're used to that have been broken down into, sort of algorithms so that you
Mm,
can do these things pretty fast. But
mm,
that wasn't me. I didn't like doing things that way. I usually teach my students those methods, so if they want to do some of that work, they'll know how to. But
mhm,
to me, it's not that much different than just doing things and looking at the world around you. You'll
mhm,
still find systems. It's about creating systems,
mhm,
and the systems don't have to be um, mathematical. Well, they're going to be mathematical. They don't have to be prescribed.
mhm,
They can be open, and you can just look like you're going to build a new house.
mhm,
People learn to build it right into the mountain structure. And these
mhm,
kinds of things. Some of the greatest architects, and so you can do the same thing with music. Because there are governing principles,
mhm,
but they don't have to be all the same.
mhm.
Be
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, let me see. Okay. Who are your favorite artists slash performers in your genre and who inspires you?
You asked some hard questions for me because my genre is all music, you
Mm.
know, you know,
Oh.
and so I mean all music around the globe. Some of my earliest influences were people like Duke Ellington, Beethoven,
Mm,
Bach, um, like my mentors, Joe Henderson, um, and then my dissertation was on John Coltrane.
mm,
And so, but everybody in between, Miles Davis, you know, um, Stravinsky, people around the world, Takamitsu in Japan, they're all different types of inspirations. Mary Lou Williams did a whole other approach to things. And Bessie Smith, who kind of launched everything,
mhm,
all the instrumentalists kind of followed after her, just like Billie Holiday. All the people after the swing era started following Lester Young, who was influenced by Billie Holiday. So,
Hmm.
everybody contributes something. And then, lately I've been traveling, I've always traveled the world. And so, I've been to a lot of places on the African continent, a lot of places on the Asian continent,
Mm.
and in South America around, and everywhere has its influence. They approach things differently, and they show you the way life has evolved on the planet. Through music, you can see exactly how life's evolved. Through
Yeah.
looking at the styles, listening to the music, looking at the instruments,
Hmm.
lots of things. So all of those are my influences.
Mm. Would you say that you have like a favorite genre of music, like out of all the types of musics that you've been involved in?
Um, well, I can never be pinned down on that. Even when I got my job and they asked what music I do, I say Hesterian musicism. That's
Mm.
what I do all my life.
Mm.
And so that involves all the things I'm talking about, all different approaches to music. It's open.
Yeah.
So the genre is between, like I said earlier, premeditated composition and spontaneous composition.
Mm.
I love to improvise, but I love structure at the same
Mm.
time, you know. And so I try to always work with those two things in mind, which leaves things pretty free
Mhm.
in general.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that there isn't like a set genre that you have because when you have like so many different like aspects and so many different genres coming from so many different places, like it gives you more like not creative freedom, but like it just kind of like builds your creativity more because you could take so many different aspects from different genres and make something new out of it. But yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that offers an opportunity to is what I like to do is create environments for other
Mm.
people to come in and work with me,
Mm.
and not just musicians, dancers, visual artists and everything else to come in and
Mm.
explore and to feel free too, and to
Mm.
feel that they have to be structured and things like that.
Yeah.
But to
No,
do it
that's
collectively is even more fun.
mm. Okay. Let's see. How would you describe your audience or audiences?
Well, it depends, you know, because I work in an interdisciplinary way,
Mm.
music, dance, visual arts, and all these things. My audiences are usually pretty diverse,
Mm.
you know. And also, when I change my direction in music, like for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with what I call hip hop hysteria.
Mm.
And we've had contests where we invite people to submit hip hop um, rhymes.
Mm.
We choose four, two women and two men.
Mm.
And some of them in the first contest we had, the one who did the best was a 9-year-old female from San Francisco, and she blew
Wow.
everybody away. Yeah, she blew everybody away. And then another one was 15, and then
Mm.
the other two were adults. And
Mm.
we've done it when during the pandemic we did the same contest, but people couldn't come in, and so we did it online, and that opened it up. So one of our winners was from Lagos, Nigeria. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
yeah. So and so that changes the audience.
Mm.
And I'd like for the audience to be just like it was in the old days in rituals, where
Mm.
everybody's there. The babies are there, the elders are there, and everybody in between's there. And
Mm.
everybody feels that they can both be a spectator and a participant
Mm.
in various ways. And so I like to try to think of audiences in that kind of fashion, rather than just coming in and sitting down and clapping when it's the right time to clap and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. Actually, that's because that's kind of what I'm trying to get at in my ethnographic report. I'm trying to see how specifically the recital hall like affects the performers and like the
Mm.
artists because like I feel like it's like a very formal music scene. So it's like, how is this affecting them? Because like in other music scenes, my best example, I would say like indie and rock music, like when they're in like venues like outside, like they have the freedom to be like, woo, like, but like if you're in a recital hall, you gotta be quiet, you gotta be respectful and all that. But okay, so is the
Mm.
last performance your only time performing in the recital hall?
No, I've performed in the recital hall since 2000.
Oh, wow. Okay,
every year,
cool.
every year.
Um,
And I've performed in there more than anybody else on faculty because
oh,
every
wow.
year I perform at least once. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that that's what I should do as a composer performer.
Mm,
And but since I became in the last 4 years, I've been director of digital arts and new media, and so I've
mm,
been performing in the dark lab over there. And in the dark lab, you can do a more ritual performance. One
mm.
of the performances that we did in 2022 involved projection on the wall, the ceiling, the floor,
Oh, that's cool.
everywhere at once. And the six performers that were involved, uh,
Mm.
at least six, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, six performers that were involved. Two were on the floor, and two of us were in the ceiling and in the rafters, up in the rafters.
Wow.
And then we had dance. Manju Kone
Mm-hmm.
did the dance. Then we had one dance from Beijing, China, that was piped in.
Mm-hmm.
So what, and the point was to have a consciousness altering experience.
Mm.
It was a continuous concert, no breaks in between, for an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
And it was jam packed. It's a small venue, so jam
Mm-hmm.
packed means about 150. And everybody stayed,
Mm-hmm.
everybody got off into it. And the point was to have everybody absorb the music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was successful. And so that venue is different because still there's not enough room for everybody to move freely like they would outdoors, but
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah.
room for them to at least think freely and not have to respond in a mechanical kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
But where
Um,
you're headed is very good in trying to think of the venue and the freedom that it allows the audience.
yeah. Okay, so my question is, out of all the times that you performed in the recital hall and out of all the times that you've performed outside of the recital hall in different venues, have you noticed a difference in the audiences from the recital hall, and from like other venues?
Yeah, it all depends. And the venue does suggest a lot, like you're saying. Like, for instance, I've performed in Lima, Peru, and it was at the Huacas, which are
Mm.
these pyramids, old
Oh,
pyramids.
wow.
And the person that I was working with, Marlene, I can't remember her last name right now, Casada, Marlene
Mm.
Casada was a visual artist, and she projected her images onto the pyramids, onto the
Mm.
Huacas.
Oh,
And then I
wow.
performed at the same time, and the audience there was just completely open, and they felt free. They were respectful. There's a lot
Mm.
of different ways of being respectful. Uh,
Mm.
like a lot within earlier African American culture, it was respectful to chime in with the music. To
Mm.
say something if you appreciated it, just like it is in church sometimes.
Mm.
Is to react to the music is not disrespectful,
Mhm.
but a lot of times it gets narrowed down to that in concert halls. So I'm glad
Mm.
you're thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. Every genre has rules. How would you describe the rules in your genre?
Well, again, I don't go by that. I'm not governed by rules.
Mm.
Not by social rules. I'm governed by universal rules. You know,
Mm.
and so I try to look at the way things operate in the universe and to go according to that in terms of music, in terms of most things.
Mm.
So that allows a sense of both freedom and responsibility. I
Mm.
think to really have freedom, you have to take on responsible roles and make sure everything's balanced, that everybody's included. All the things, and that it's a diverse situation. Diversity of thinking is an important thing
Mm.
because when it gets too narrow, you're no longer operating within the laws of the universe. Because the laws of the universe are always open,
Mm.
and they always have great form, great respect, all
Mhm.
of these other things. So it's not like it's one or the other.
Mm.
So with genres, I think that, like with jazz, I don't like to even use that term.
Mm.
And most of the artists who were the progenitors of the music didn't like the term either, because it's
Mm.
something that's imposed from the outside. Someone put the term on the music and then they use it as a marketing term. Whereas musicians don't see, and me included, I don't see spirituals and blues and swing and bebop and
Mm,
hip hop. I don't see them as different. I see them as continuations of an evolution.
mm,
And so, I don't think there's a self-defining set of rules that govern a genre. You know, I think, and with African American music, that's very clear. That's why a lot of times people try to appropriate African American music, and but they never can. You never can copy it. You never can.
no.
Never. You know, and African American. I was talking to another faculty member um, uh, about this just last week. Say, well, I'd never worry about it, because I put all my stuff on online and it's
Yeah.
free. You got it.
Hmm.
Because I'm going to do something tomorrow that's different. And the younger people have always done that.
Mm,
It's like right now, I mean, that's how hip hop evolved,
mm,
right at a time where traditional jazz was declining or becoming stagnant. If it
mm,
becomes stagnant, that's declining in African American culture
mm,
because it's always supposed to be evolving. And so it's when it stopped evolving, like right after the 70s, um, hip hop came on the scene,
mm,
picking up some of the elements of that early jazz and spoken word thing that goes all the way back to the African continent
mm,
with the Gelis, and who were telling the history, both the long history of thousands of years and the daily news. You know,
mm,
and when they were doing that, that's the same thing they're doing in hip hop,
mhm.
just reporting,
Yep.
what's up. And so, yeah, just so the genres and all of that stuff, um, they just have to be living documents,
Mm.
living governing elements, And so, and for me anyway, that's the way I see it, you know.
No, yeah, I like that. I like that because again, it's so much it gives you more freedom to think about things. Like you're not restricted in like in any way. It's just all creativity and whatnot. But yeah.
Because I came up with a lot of restrictions, and because in school they only had European music,
Mm,
so I played all those. I played in the orchestra, band, and all that stuff.
mm,
So I had to follow those rules. But I was also in the chorus. I was in the chorus from when I was a little kid.
mm,
And, so you have to follow the rules of that. But even when I was in the chorus, my high school teacher found out that I'd been in the chorus when I was a little kid and
mm,
asked me to get in the chorus. So I got in. But then I'd sing all the parts.
mm.
And everybody'd be laughing because I'm singing the soprano part and stuff. And the conductor couldn't tell who was doing
Mm.
that, because I sang it in tune, I sang it right.
Mhm,
And then in band, I played all the instruments. I wanted to play
mhm,
all the instruments, and the brass, the winds, percussion, everything. Just because, like I said, I hear things as all interconnected.
mm.
You know,
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Okay, how do you discern which music is firmly inside the genre and what kind of music isn't really a part of the genre anymore? Mm,
I don't. Again, I don't think that way.
yeah.
I think that all music is music. There are two things about music. There's no music on the planet ever that everybody liked,
Mm,
and there's no music on the planet that everybody disliked.
mm,
you know? And so so someone can say, oh no, well, I like it. So therefore it's within the genre or whatever that may
mm,
be at the time. And so I think that it's just like people, you can't really over package people, and
mm,
say, well, you go in this package and you go in that package. It just
mm,
doesn't work like that. That's not the way the universe is designed.
mm,
With colonialism and a lot of things, because they're trying to control people,
mm,
you try to filter things,
mm,
but that's not the way existence works. Existence isn't filtered like that, you know.
mm,
And so I just try to stick with that, and it's always given me a sense of looking at everything for what it actually is. There's a big difference between social reality and actuality.
mm,
Actuality is what actually exists. Social
mm,
reality tries to break things down into these packages, and it doesn't
mm,
work like that. And that's why even when they come up with something that's scientifically sound, it changes in 10 years because you can't
mm.
keep it in those packages. Everything always keeps evolving as you get more information and more experience, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that I like that a lot. I've never thought of that. You said social ac actuality?
Well, there's social perspective
Mm,
involves reality, social reality.
mm.
Actuality
Oh,
is what actually exists. Like
gotcha.
in my classes, sometimes I tell my students, well, I don't think of it that way. I try to
Mm,
see things from a Martian's perspective.
mm,
So a Martian doesn't speak English or Spanish or anything else. It's just looking at what's going on. It doesn't know the politics of
mm.
the situation or any of that. It's just looking and saying that, well, these people over here are killing these people over here. These people over here seem to be doing this and that. They just look at what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And we're trying to always judge things and to force things into certain directions.
Mm, yeah. I like that a lot. Okay. What's the difference in your styles of dress and formality of music events when you're at the recital hall versus other kinds of venues?
You have some great questions. Goodness
Thank
gracious.
you.
Well, I don't know. Go to my website sometimes because I have pictures of my concerts, various concerts in the recital hall. There are a
Mm,
lot of them. Sometimes I wear African wear, you know,
mm,
a different attire, and I tell my whoever's playing with me to just dress up.
mm,
I tell them, don't look like the audience.
mm,
I don't tell them specifically what to wear. Just say, don't look like the audience. Make it a situation that expresses what it is you're going to do on stage.
mm.
Um, I don't think I've come to think. I don't think I ever wore a tie and coat and that kind of thing. But if it's hip hop, I'll dress in a way that fits that situation. I try to dress to fit the situation that we're
Oh,
going to express. You know, and that changes from circumstance to circumstance and according to who I'm playing with and that kind of stuff. But it's always to separate from the audience. Oh, I think you froze. Am my computer or yours? Yeah, I lost you for a minute. You froze.
yeah. Yeah, the internet went out.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
back. That's good. So we're getting close to 14.
Yes, we are. We got what, five more questions? Okay, well, I actually have a follow-up question to the question I just asked you. So like, have you noticed a difference in the styles of dress and formality in your audience as well, like depending on whether you're at the recital hall versus other venues?
Yeah, definitely. One of the best venues that I've seen lately that I hadn't thought about before is a quarry. And at the quarry,
Mm.
everybody
Oh.
seems to feel a lot more relaxed,
Mm,
and they can kind of do their own thing. They can come and all be there together, but they
mm,
don't have to approach it in any one way.
mm.
I feel, at the recital hall, I mean, some people feel, well, it's different in Santa Cruz than it is in other places, even
Yeah.
San Francisco or Oakland or New York.
Mm,
And here, everybody can feel comfortable dressing down. They come in blue jeans or whatever, and they go, okay.
mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
in a lot of other places, especially like in New York and in certain spots in New York, everybody will dress up a certain standard in order
Mm,
to go in the hall. So it's been pretty um, comfortable in terms of the way people approach the recital hall in that regard, in terms of the way
yeah.
the behavior in there still becomes standard behavior,
Mhm.
you know, but at least in terms of dress, that's why. So you're asking some interesting questions. I hadn't thought about that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Mm, okay. Do you perform in less formal venues?
Oh yeah, I perform pretty much everywhere. When I first moved to San Francisco from Southern California, I was living near LA.
Mm,
We performed outside at the Cannery in Ghirardelli Square,
mhm.
because they had everything. They had puppeteers, they had people dancing, and all
Oh,
this.
wow.
It was a totally different environment than it is now. And you can make
Mhm,
a lot of money. I ran into this one singer. Her name was Elna Jordan, and she was with a
mhm,
cellist. And at that time, I was playing my flutes, and we put a group together, a trio together, and
Mhm.
we played at the Cannery, and she had this fantastic voice. It was like Bessie Smith.
Mm.
She ended up actually working on Broadway in LA with
Mm.
John Hendricks because he heard her one time. But
Mm.
anyway, we'd play for like 30, 45 minutes and make like $500, just from people donating all of a sudden,
Mhm.
just because they could hear it all over,
Mhm.
in the cannery. And not just us. I mean, a lot of people that were good, they'd go there and they just do one event that day and they're set for the rest of the day or
Wow.
the rest of the week sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that was one kind of venues I did. I like playing outdoors and in casual situations.
Mm.
In addition to, when I was, like I said, when I was a little kid, when I was 8 years old, when I was singing this El Paso Boy Choir. And so
Mm.
we did operas and we did all this stuff. We toured and we did all this other stuff, all informal venues. So that
Mm.
was the opposite side of that.
Mm.
And then I like doing things with dance a lot in
Mm.
different kinds of ways. I worked at what's it called? DTW Dance Theater Workshop in New York with a lot of dancers,
Mm.
and worked on a showboat theater in Seattle, that was
Wow.
doing plays, like we did Metamorphosis by Kafka and stuff like
Mm.
that was a different approach, different venue and different everything. Uh,
Mm.
so I like change, so
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, a lot of different venues, played in a lot of different kinds of situations.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so what are your audiences like in these other venues?
Well, we're kind of it's one way if you're in the United States. I mean, that's another way of looking at it. In the United
Mhm.
States, the audience, if we think about it a certain way, they don't change that much.
Mhm.
They come and a lot of places they'll sit. If it looks like you should sit, if it's like at the quarry, then they'll feel more relaxed. But they're still coming in with some baggage, and what they expect when they come into a venue.
Mhm.
When you go to other places, like the one I was describing in Lima, Peru, it's different. It's
Mhm.
if like in when I was in Oshogbo, Nigeria, it was
Mhm.
different. A lot of things were outdoors. A lot of things started at parties. They start a party like at 6 in the evening. And this one friend of mine, Twin 77, he was a visual artist, but he also, I mean, a world famous visual artist, but also had a group and he was a world famous musician with this group. And so he invited us over for a party, and it started at 6 o'clock or so, and everybody just started eating, and then all of a sudden music starts, and then they
Mhm.
start dancing and playing, and then it goes on till like 6 in the morning.
Mhm. Wow. Oh, wow.
Just continuously different people coming up and taking each other's place, playing while someone else goes to eat or whatever. So
Mhm.
that's one kind of a situation. Whereas like in I just came back from Beijing.
Mm.
uh, and we played in some situations where the what do they call them, the Beijing opera people, they usually have a certain approach, certain sound and all this, but they were at this jazz club and they were just all coming in and jamming on the Beijing opera repertoire, and
Mhm.
that was really interesting. It was kind of the situation, kind of like a jazz club usually is, where there are a lot of jazz musicians there, and some of them come up and sit in and this kind of thing. They had that going with the Beijing opera stuff. So that was a different approach. So in different parts of the world, outside of America and Europe,
Mhm.
you run into lots of different approaches to music and the
Mhm.
way people think about. When I was also in uh, La Paz, Bolivia, and
Mhm.
they had a workshop that was with both little kids and adults, and
Mhm.
they're playing all their traditional flutes and drums and stuff, and
Mhm.
they play that repertoire as it has come down for thousands of years. Then they were doing experimental stuff at the same time, where they'd just be very free and out and this kind of stuff. And in those kinds of settings, the audience was very free too, you know.
Hmm.
But I haven't seen anything like that either in terms of the approach to music or in the audience response to music
Hmm.
in the States. I haven't seen that.
Hmm.
So the situation and the place in the world and what's surrounding it. I'll just give you one other example. When I was in Korea, even uh,
Hmm.
I went over during the SARS epidemic, and so I went over to go to this festival of shaman rituals.
Hmm.
And because I've always, like I mentioned earlier, been into rituals. And so we went and they weren't having the festival, but I was over with a Korean and she asked the people, "Oh, can we go? Are you doing your ritual first?" She asked, "Oh, yeah, we're going to do our ritual. We're just not doing the festival." And said,
Hmm.
"Come." First they said no, but she tried for the next 2 days and finally they said yeah. And
Hmm.
so we went, and that was a situation where it was just very free. They have the music and the dance and and the singing going on in the middle, uh,
Hmm.
but the people around are just eating and doing this and observing and chiming.
Hmm.
So it depends, but I don't see many things except like with maybe some of the older churches, African American churches, Pentecostal and those kinds of things. I don't see
Hmm.
that kind of freedom. You know,
Hmm.
Everybody's usually sitting in one place and someone else is performing in another place,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
not everywhere.
Mm. Okay. Okay, so what kind of music do you perform or direct or organize?
Um, these for a long time,
Mm.
it's only been hysteria and musicism,
Mm.
but in various forms. And for the last, well, pretty much for almost the same length of time, um, it's been not just music. It's been music, dance, and visual arts.
Mm.
Like the first time I put an ensemble together that did that was for my master's recital
Mm.
in San Francisco. And that group stayed together for another 7 years after the recital and
Mm.
played professionally. But that was music, dance, and visual arts,
Mm.
and sometimes storytelling on top of that.
Mm.
So I've stayed with that formula, pretty much everywhere I've gone,
Mm.
in various forms,
Yeah.
depending on the situation. Sometimes there's no dancer that I'm working with, or and here we have in the recital hall, you can do a lot of projection, so I can usually use visual art projection or something.
Mm.
But yeah, that's been pretty much the backdrop to all the performances that I've done for quite a while.
Yeah. No, I like that because there's so many different things that you can do with all these different types of art, and you could just make your own story using certain aspects of certain things, and I think that's really creative.
Well, I think your generation is bringing us back to that,
Mm-hmm.
because no more are people just satisfied with just listening. They want to see something too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They want more there. They want it to be
Yeah.
more interdisciplinary. So I think we're headed in that direction.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel that the music scenes you perform in affect your audiences in any way? For example, the UCSC recital hall, what effect does it have on your audiences?
Well, my theory and what I'm working on now with the people that I brought back from Beijing, we,
Mm-hmm.
we have a we're developing a permanent collaboration right now. And the point is to change people through
Mm-hmm.
our art, because there's a real negative rap on China right now, and China has a real negative rap on the US. And so, but the artists know, hey, wait a minute, let's just get together. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they come and they engage in the art, in the creative art, then they take some of that with them.
Mm-hmm.
It hopefully transforms people. That's what ritual is supposed to make people transcend their normal situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so by getting people involved in that way, I think that we can, in the recital hall or anywhere else, we can transform them into just thinking differently and more positively, and to see how harmoniously we can live together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Um, okay. Do the venues you perform in, such as the UCSC recital hall, restrict you or your performances in any way? And do you feel that it restricts your audiences? And if so, how?
No, because I like to, like I said, try to transform the audience and to get by any of the restrictions. Um, I haven't invited people to come up and join us on stage or anything like that in the recital hall,
Hmm.
because I think that there are restrictions that the fire marshal have where you can't do that kind of thing. But then you
Hmm.
can find another venue. I see people performing out on the quad in front of the recital hall sometimes,
Hmm.
especially
Yeah.
the gamelan and people like that. And I
Hmm.
think that that opens that up to where the audience can be more intimate,
Hmm.
with the performers.
Hmm.
But no, so far, and the recital halls just, I wouldn't have built it that way. I mean, if you didn't want it to be that way, you have to build it differently.
Hmm.
I was talking to the dean about constructing a new space,
Hmm.
and the new space would have to have uh, the ability to convert from like a proscenium stage to an open room to like a black box like we have in Denham and all these different things so that you can modify it. But
Hmm.
when it's set up one way, then people are going to conform to that.
Yeah. Got you. Okay. Final question. So, how has performing in the UCSC recital hall impacted you? How has it impacted your performances going forward and your feelings toward venues and music scenes in general?
Hmm. Another good question
Mm.
and a good final question. I see UC Santa Cruz music as being very isolated, and the
Mm.
community is being very isolated.
Mm.
And through the recital hall, that's why I always bring people from all over the world. I think that we can contribute a little more of the New York feeling,
Mhm.
where there's a lot of different things happening in there that makes the town feel better,
Mhm.
makes people feel that they have exposure to more things. I think
Mm.
that it can contribute a lot. And now that we're diversifying a little bit, especially faculty wise, we need to get more students of color. And
Mm. Yep.
but we're beginning to work on that very seriously. And if we can do those kinds of things, then the recital hall can become a place where we help the community transform.
Mm.
And if we do that, then because a lot of people who come here don't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable when I came here,
Mhm.
you know. And so I think that the recital hall can be a place where they can know they can go and feel comfortable is where we should be heading, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of levels.
Yeah, no, I like that because when I first moved out to Santa Cruz, I was like, okay, it has a city, but the city is kind of in, by itself on its own little island within an
Yeah,
island within an island, so it's kind of like we got to get out and, do some things.
yeah,
I really like the idea of bringing in more stuff to like almost like open Santa Cruz back out to the world, to be like,
yeah,
hey, this is what's actually going on, you guys
yeah,
don't have to be stuck in your own little bubble and whatnot. But
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, so that is the end.
That was more than 14. It seems like more than 14.
Well, yeah, I think it was like 20-ish
Oh,
plus the yeah, plus the follow-up
yeah,
questions, but
yeah.
there were 14 main questions.
Well, at least you got me roped in by saying 14.
Mm.
No,
Yeah, but that wasn't too bad. I think 45 minutes was good.
that was good. That was good
Mhm.
questions, like I said. Yeah, so that was real good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, so to access the recording, I'm pretty sure if you just go into your local files, it should be in there and it's gonna be like a MP4 file, an audio file, and then it's gonna be the video file. And I would please appreciate if you could send the video file and it should have like the audio and everything in there.
Okay, if I can't find it, I'll contact you.
Okay.
I'll try to see because I've never kept one of these, so
Mm.
I don't know where to look. But that's a good. So it would be just like with my other audio files, you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll just look for it.
All right.
Pretty easy. Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad I had a chance to meet you and
Thank
hope that
you.
you get a good grade on this.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You have a great rest of your day.
You too. See ya.
Bye.